Aquanaut's Holiday was released on the PS1 in 1994 and developed by Art Dink. While probably being most well known nowadays for the HD 2D remakes of Dragon Quest 1 through 3, they've made all sorts of games spanning their nearly 40-year existence. From Business Simulator A-Train and the PS1 version of SimCity 2000, to niche and esoteric titles like Notam of Wind, and absolute gems like No One Can Stop Mr. Domino and Battle Construction Vehicles. Come on! They have quite the range. Aquanaut's Holiday falls firmly into that second category, being a game with no goal or fail state. The only direction the game gives you is in the manual. Actually, in-game, you're dropped into the middle of the ocean, and just go. Because that's the point of Aquanaut's Holiday. It doesn't have one, really. The big adventure your character went on to save the ocean happens entirely in backstory. What you're playing is the reward they got from that. A holiday. Piloting a submarine in an unexplored region of ocean, your only task in the game is to simply explore. Fly around, look at cool polygonal fish, and discover strange landmarks. It's a game without a goal, a game you're not meant to understand, but instead experience as a piece of art and see what thoughts and emotions it conjures up within you. It's a beautiful game. I really enjoyed setting the submarine at a steady pace and just sitting back, letting the scenery and sea life wash over me, occasionally stopping to admire something that caught my eye for whatever reason. The 3D models are delightful, and in an age where the low poly look of the PS1 is so often invoked and so lovingly adored, it's no wonder that a game whose only purpose is to specifically appreciate that look would resonate with me so much. It's your own interactive aquarium exhibit, a game made to reject the more linear, goal-driven blockbuster nature of mainstream gaming, and to give the player their own ways to express themselves in-game, enjoying the playfulness that could be had just from moving around a virtual space, and to observe what the game was showing you, rather than running past it all. And they nailed it. Piloting the submarine is really enjoyable when it's not getting stuck on absolutely nothing, having an almost Mario 64 wing Capian momentum to it as you go along at full speed, listening to the gentle hum of the engine, navigating the terrain skimming the rocks below, using the sonar to interact with the different fish you find, or making your own music with it as you go around. There's so much to explore too. The game gives you 256 fast travel points to put down wherever you want. I don't think I even began to scratch the surface with what I experienced. It won't be for everyone, but it's unlike anything I've ever played before. I love that a game like this, that dares to redefine what a game could even be, was able to get a publisher and come out on the PS1. And on top of that it resonated with so many people who were also looking for niche titles like this, selling over 200,000 copies. In its pursuit of creating this beautiful ocean to explore, the developers weren't afraid of making something that could be not fun at times, rejecting the idea that games should only exist if they're meant to be fun, rather than something that you can use to experience anything. While aspects like the submarine piloting are fun on their own, it's not like there's any deeper mechanics to it than just using it as a vehicle to go look at things. The fun of piloting the submarine wears off, but the world keeps you invested. Tale of the Sun released a year later and followed a similar philosophy, but is a game that does have an objective and actual gameplay, if you get me. This made getting into the game a little more frustrating, because once again it drops you into it with zero explanation, which is fine for a chill, zone-out aquarium game with no real mechanics to grasp, but was less fun here when there was actually something I was meant to be doing, but had no idea how to even begin figuring that out. I did eventually though, and by that I mean I read the manual again. You play as a caveman, and your goal is to hunt and gather resources to expand your tribe, develop new tools, and eventually take down mammoths to build a tower out of their bones, with the hopes of reaching the sun. Of course, it does all that in its own unique, Art Dinkian way. While you're only ever playing as one member of the tribe, your stats and experience are shared with all members of it. So, if you eat something that boosts your brain power, the entire tribe's brain power goes up as well, which in turn lets them develop tools you can use to better hunt animals. Increase your propagate stat, which points directly to your crotch, and well, you can probably guess what that one does. Now, the concept of the game makes it sound like it would be a kind of, hardcore survival game, but instead it's actually a surprisingly laid-back experience where you mostly run around, explore the world, and see what's out there. Very Aquanaut's Holiday in a sense. A lot of the focus is still on the joy of moving around and exploring the world. There's just a bit more to it this time. The game is very atmospheric despite being so simple graphically, the music is incredible, and I love how well it conveys the passing of time, brightly illuminating the front of your character in the morning and casting them in an orange silhouette at sunset. It does such a good job of establishing the time of day without ever actually showing you the sun. It's beautiful. By the way, all the items on the floor were made out of real-life mochi and then photographed into the game. There's an entire option in the menu just thanking the people who made them all. It's very cute. All that said though, I'm not really sure how much this game is for me. I think I found the disparity between the game's actual goals and the vagueness of its mechanics a bit much. Like, just exploring the world and looking at cool animals wasn't as fun to me here when I knew there was actually something I was meant to be doing and I was doing a bad job of doing it. But again, it doesn't have to be for everyone, and that doesn't mean I can't respect what it does, especially when reading interviews with its creator and his thoughts around certain mechanics. The way the game builds tension between the enjoyable moments of the game, contrasting them with moments that are deliberately meant to suck and be annoying, to create a contrast and make those fun moments even more enjoyable, is really interesting, I think. Your caveman will fall asleep against your will at nighttime, and you just gotta sit there and wait for them to wake up so you can keep running around. Fighting animals sucks at first, because of course fighting a bear, or whatever that's meant to be, with your fists or trying to throw rocks at them, would suck, but that makes getting your first weapon feel all the more better. The game was made deliberately to be, to quote the creator, the anti-Mario game. After seeing Mario 64 at Space World and how Nintendo were also trying to convey the joy of exploring a 3D space, they went for a more counterintuitive approach. The cavemen were deliberately made to not be perfect avatars of control, make them too capable, make the combat too good, and people would play it like an action game, rather than the experimental, exploratory game that it is. And by this point, nearly 10 minutes into the video, you're probably wondering why I'm talking about these games in the first place. Well, they were both directed by Kazutoshi Ida, whose thoughts on the game industry in Japan during the 90s led him to deliberately create games outside of that mainstream norm. So, what happens when the creator of the anti-Mario game teams up with the creator of Mario? You get Doshin the Giant. Doshin the Giant is a god game developed by Param and published by Nintendo, originally released exclusively in Japan in 1999 for the Nintendo 64 disk drive, the N64's failed disk add-on. As far as anything could be on the N64 DD, Doshin the Giant was a success, essentially becoming the mascot for the system, appearing on things like Christmas cards, and newspapers you would receive for subscribing to RandNet, the add-on's online service. That might sound impressive, but it wasn't exactly stiff competition. Doshin the Giant and its expansion pack literally comprises 1/5 of the console's entire library of software. Not even games, just software, considering some things that came out for it were a disc that lets you connect online, and a disc that lets you upload things you make in another game online. Still though, for like the 3 people who owned an N64 DD and played Doshin the Giant, they loved it. And Nintendo must have recognised that had it released on a console that people actually owned, it would have probably sold really well. By the time the DD had released and flopped, converting the game to a regular N64 cart wouldn't have been feasible, so instead the game was remade from the ground up for GameCube and released in Japan and Europe in 2002. For a long while on the English-speaking internet, Doshin the Giant was a very obscure game. When I first made a video about it over 12 years ago, it was genuinely one of the first reviews ever posted on YouTube about it. That said, while awareness of Doshin is definitely greater nowadays, having never been released in the US, it probably still is one of the more obscure games that Nintendo has published, and most of that awareness is still only for the GameCube version. I love Doshin the Giant, I have since I played it as a kid, and I want to talk about it to spread some of that love online with people who may only know a little about it. And I want to talk about it all, do a way better job than the awful 6-minute video I made when I was 16, and cover everything there is to possibly cover. In fact, I ended up having so much I wanted to talk about that what was meant to be one video has quickly spiraled into a 3-part series. So, in this first part, we're going to be looking at Doshin the Giant for N64 DD and GameCube. I'm going to talk about my experience and feelings of playing through each version, compare how they differ, and maybe even argue if you can even call it a port, or if it should be considered its own thing entirely. A remake, or maybe even a sequel. In part 2, we're going to look at the expansion pack for Doshin the Giant that was released a few months after the game, also for the N64 DD. It is maybe one of the strangest experiences I've ever had playing a video game, where the only way to interact with NPCs and the environment around you is by pissing on it. And finally, in part 3, we're going to be talking about Marigold Management, the company partially owned by Nintendo that not only funded Doshin the Giant, but also several other cool and interesting titles. So, with all that out of the way, what was Doshin the Giant's deal anyway? After working with Art Dink on Aquanaut's Holiday and Tale of the Sun, Ida would go on to form his own company called Param, alongside Takao Kurabayashi and Yana, 2 people who would go on to be credited as artist and engineering on Doshin the Giant respectively. Peep how awesome their company website was. I think it's literally just a directory of cool projects the 3 of them have been working on, and I'm devastated that none of the pages they link to seem to be preserved, or don't work properly even when they have been. Param was part of Marigold Management, which was a joint venture between HR company Recruit, who you might know as the modern day owners of Indeed and Glassdoor, and Nintendo, who you might know as, well, you know. Marigold was created to deal with the lack of third-party support for the N64 by giving funding to smaller studios to create games for the console, which is really cool. While the success of Marigold could be debated, as only 4 of the 8 games in development from it actually released, and one of them even ended up not releasing on N64 and ended up a GameCube game, I think it's awesome that Nintendo would help fund projects from small teams like that, all of which ended up being interesting games that I could imagine struggling to get funding otherwise. I found this entire scheme fascinating, and was originally going to cover all of their games here, including the cancelled ones. But then before I knew it, I had written so much about it all, it would have easily added an extra 20 minutes to the length of this already long video. So I'm going to talk about all that in part 3 of this series, like I mentioned earlier. All you need to know for now is that the scheme existed and that Doshin was pretty unique within it, in that it was the only game made with such close involvement with Nintendo, with Miyamoto serving as the game's producer and offering his own input at times. Because of that, it does come across feeling very Nintendo-y, often being mistaken as a game that Nintendo made, which, I mean, I guess in a certain roundabout way it was, but nah, Param made this, and sadly Doshin the Giant is all they made before they, and Marigold as a whole, was liquidated in 2003. So now that we've talked about the history of Iida's previous works, and how Doshin the Giant ended up being made, let's finally actually play through it. The first thing that really jumped out to me playing Doshin the Giant was how accessible it was compared to Iida's previous work. While Tale of the Sun and Aquanaut's Holiday drop you in with no indication of what you're meant to be doing, preserving any and all explanation for the manual, you really feel Nintendo's influence in how well it guides the player to what they're meant to be doing. For starters, the game actually has an opening cutscene, and it has a narrator character who'll give you tips and directions as you play, but on top of that, the very first thing you see are villagers with speech bubbles above their heads, and what you're meant to be doing is immediately obvious. If you give the villager what they're asking for, you're rewarded with some hearts that start filling a ring around the screen. So within 30 seconds of getting control of Doshin, you already have a trail to follow. It's time to fill up that ring and see what it does. The game guides you like this the entire time. It's always obvious what you should be doing next, to the point that I'd argue that even without the introductory cutscene or the narrator character giving you tips, if you were playing the original game in Japanese, unable to understand a word of it, you would understand the gameplay of Doshin perfectly by the end of the first in-game day. Now, not to say that Tale of the Sun and Aquanaut's Holiday weren't thoughtful, that's not really what I mean, but those games were made to deliver very unique concepts for a more niche audience, and Doshin was meant to have more mainstream appeal, so the gameplay of it was more strongly considered from that angle. They were so keen to get that aspect right, they hired game designer Gabon Shibata for the team, because Iida was worried he wouldn't get it right on his own. Shibata previously worked as designer on Sega Saturn RPG Air's Adventure, and I mean this in the nicest way possible. It looks like exactly the type of game I would imagine the creator of Doshin the Giant thinking looks cool enough to hire the director of it for his team. Like, yeah, that tracks. The way the game guides you like this is masterfully done, and part of the reason it's so easy to grasp is that, at its core, it's a very simple game. It's a god game like Populous and Black and White, with the key difference being you're in direct control of Doshin, rather than being an omniscient presence, which helps simplify the game by limiting the things you're able to do. You're here to help the inhabitants of this island. They'll ask for trees, which spread green energy around them, transforming the barren wasteland into habitable space. They'll also ask you to raise or lower the ground, which you can do with Doshin's terraforming ability. And finally, they'll complain to you if something is in the way of where they want to build. Usually it was the tree they just asked for, which I placed exactly where they were looking to build, like, oops, sorry about that. And yeah, that's it. It's only those 4 things, and if you're playing the N64 version, it's only free. The villagers don't care about trees being in the way in that version. Hell, they don't even care if you're in the way, they'll just start building. There's no resource management or anything like that, nor are there any menus to sort through. The only thing close to resource management are the trees, which all have a lifespan of a few in-game days, so you'll need to spend some time replacing old trees that die off with newer ones. The reason you want to help the villagers grow is because once they get big enough, they'll start constructing a monument. There are 16 to build in total, with 15 regular ones you can build anytime, and the final one only being available once all others are finished. Once you build all 16, you beat the game. The colours surrounding them indicate what villages need to build them, so the red village will build the red monument, the blue village the blue monument, and so on. But there's a monument for every colour variation there is. So for the green and yellow monument, you'll need a village of green and yellow villagers. So the moment-to-moment gameplay is very simple, but the complexity comes from planning how you're going to build all the monuments, creating new villages to get the harder to build ones, or moving new people into existing villages when their monuments mysteriously disappear. I wonder what happened to it. This is where we get our first big difference between the N64 and GameCube versions. It's widely said online that they're just the same game, it's only ever described as a simple port, and places like the N64DD fan wiki just use the description of the GameCube version, but it was actually developed completely from scratch, programmed by Giles Goddard, who had previously worked on Star Fox and 1080 snowboarding. He wasn't on the original team, and said the GameCube version was a complete rewrite. It has loads of things in it that weren't in the original, like female villagers for starters, so -1 point to the N64DD wiki there. I'm not sure why you would bother writing a wiki entry for a game you obviously haven't played. The two versions also have completely different maps. The GameCube one is actually a lot smaller, only starting with 4 villages, 1 for each colour, whereas the N64 version has 9, with some repeated colours, and some that are even colour mixed right from the beginning. Even something as integral to the game as how the villages grow differs between the two. On GameCube it's very simple. Fulfill the villagers' needs and they'll build houses, and these houses spawn new villages. Once a village has enough buildings and people, they will start constructing a monument. Now on N64 it's mostly the same. Fulfill needs, build houses, people spawn, but it is different. Villagers don't spawn as quickly, and also only one at a time rather than in one big group. On top of this, villages can only be founded in predetermined spots of the map, and their max size is predetermined too. This led to moments during my playthrough where a village of only a few people kept trying to build monuments that would take them way too long to actually build, leading to it inevitably failing over and over again. I don't like this. While the areas flagged as being habitable are in very sensible locations you would naturally want to try and found new villages, this is also a game where you can make new land out of nothing, so it's not out of the question that a player might try to create a new village somewhere and it won't work. You can see me trying to do it here. Not to mention that double whammy of the max size of the village being determined even before it's founded. It feels like I'm being punished for starting this village here, when I had no way of possibly knowing it would be too small to do anything helpful, unless I read the guidebook. I'm glad this was removed from the GameCube version, where you can make new villages anywhere as long as it's far away enough from the others, and they can all get to the same size. As for when the monument starts construction, on N64 you don't need to do anything else to help it get built, but on GameCube there is an extra step. If you let the villagers build a monument without helping, they'll build a non-regulation monument, which is a literal pile of poo, and does not count towards the monuments you need to beat the game. For them to build a regulation monument that does, You need to give them a flower, which you get by piling a load of trees together until they give up their energy, creating a new forest in their place, and a flower too. Why you need the flower? I don't know, and it doesn't really matter. What I will say is, I don't think that this was really a necessary addition. It didn't add a lot to the game for me. Conceptually, I get the idea. It does add gameplay in the sense that it's something else you need to keep on top of. You can't just coast along and neglect a village once it's big enough or whatever. But it's really not a hard requirement to meet. The only time I got the poo-poo monument was when I deliberately let it get built to see what it looked like. The villager requests aren't time sensitive, so there's no punishment for doing things at your own pace and taking your time to do a loop of the island, helping out each village for as long as you need to, racking up all the hearts you get from them. So what's up with those anyway? Well, as you've probably noticed by now, Doshin can grow in size. At the beginning of each day you start off pretty small, but you get bigger every time you fill a ring of hearts. Growing enhances your abilities, making things like terraforming much faster, and also increases your movement speed, which to begin with is very, very slow. The start of each day reminds me a lot of the cavemen in Tale of the Sun, where they'd randomly fall asleep on you, especially when you're having to do stuff like slowly lug trees over to a village. The addition of deliberately slow and tedious moments so that when you get past them, it's all the more satisfying. That's a fine balance to manage, the line between a game occasionally being annoying to create an enjoyable friction and just actually being annoying. But I hella love friction moments like that in games when done well, and Doshin balances that balance very well. There really is nothing like seeing an absolute ocean of requests on the horizon, and knowing you're gonna hoover up a shit ton of hearts for doing them all. You know, when you eventually get there. As well as love, there's also hate. Killing a villager, scaring them, and destroying buildings will create skulls, and you grow bigger by getting a ring of them too. It sounds counterintuitive. Normally a game would punish you for doing things like that, but I love how in Doshin it reinforces the low stakes, chill nature of the game. Even when you make mistakes, you can still grow from it. Rather uncharacteristically for a game created by Ida, it feels like a deliberate move to lessen the tension. Even monuments getting destroyed isn't a big deal. You don't need all 15 of them in the world at once to build the final one, just having built them once is enough. It takes what feels like could have been a massive setback for the player, having a monument be destroyed, and flips it on its head, actually encouraging the player to destroy them so you can build different monuments in their place. The closest thing the game has to a punishment is exclusive to the GameCube version. If villagers hate you, then they build hate buildings, like cannons and statues depicting you being impaled on a spike, and build hate monuments. It's entirely aesthetic though, they still count towards the monuments you need to beat the game. You'll just have to deal with the fact they hate you every time you walk by, because oh my god, they hold a grudge for a long time if you wrong them. That is maybe one aspect I wish the N64 version pushed a little more. While hate doesn't explicitly set you back progress-wise, if you're halfway through creating a circle of hearts, it will overwrite them, setting you back on growing to the next size. But the thing is, it's actually very hard to get skulls unless you go out of your way to do so, because you can't actually destroy buildings in the N64 version by accidentally walking into them. Doshin will just jump backwards. This was a fun thing to try and navigate on GameCube, especially as Doshin got bigger, but it's completely absent here. This is where Doshin's second form comes into play. Doshin is the love giant, and by pressing R, you become Jashin, the hate giant. All of his abilities revolve around destruction. You cannot help villagers or pick them up, you can only smash things and shoot fireballs. However, I actually found very few instances where I wanted to use him. Outside of destroying old monuments, I only used it to stop certain natural disasters, or, in the GameCube one at least, used his large jump to traverse distances faster, which is something you can't do in the original. The game might not explicitly punish you for destroying villages, but it's still generally something you want to avoid having happen. As such, Jashin kinda ended up feeling a little underbaked during my playthroughs. Which is why I think they made the villagers on GameCube hold grudges for so much longer, otherwise you'd so rarely see skulls at all. And, you know, maybe that's fine. It is just another ability you have, like terraforming or whatever, so maybe it's weird to complain that you don't use it that much. Like, how would you even try to integrate him into the game so you use him more often? I have no idea, it's not like there's enemies to fight or anything like that. But the way it's portrayed in-game and in the manual, it makes it feel like it was meant to play a larger role, like it's his alter ego that you'd use just as much, but that isn't really the case. You use him very, very occasionally, and that's fine, I guess. At the very least, you can use him to hoover up some easy skulls, so long as you're fine with everyone hating you. At least the banging music they play from the Hate Monument makes up for that a little. Shout out this game's music, by the way. Composed by Tatsuhiko Asano, the soundtrack is mostly diegetic. Stand near a settlement and you'll hear the general hustle and bustle of the town and the music they're playing. But leave and go somewhere more remote, and the music stops, leaving you with just the sound of nature, waves crashing against the shore. It's really nice. I love the contrast the two vibes have with each other. The towns can feel chaotic as everyone requests your help, so it's nice to have that downtime when walking between them. I also absolutely adore the music that plays during the sunsets at the end of each day. Both versions have their own songs. The GameCube version plays Yellow Giant, which is kind of the game's theme song despite not appearing anywhere in the original N64 game, outside of its melody. It's a beautiful composition, it's dreamy Tropicalia instrumentation, perfectly capturing the atmosphere of the game, a relaxing laid-back song for a relaxing laid-back experience. It's genuinely one of my favourite songs of all time, full stop. The original has a great track too, called Time. I really love how much longer this song plays for, starting way earlier and giving you a lot more time with it playing in the background before the day ends. It suits the sleepy vibe of the island as the villagers all start to settle in for the evening, leaving you alone with this song and the bright orange sky to explore and take it all in. It's great. I highly recommend listening to the companion album that was released shortly after the N64 game did. I call it a companion album because it feels weird to call it the game's soundtrack, even though that's what it says it is, when most of the songs on it aren't anywhere in-game. And even the songs that are in-game, they're completely different compositions here, like the full high-quality versions of what the MIDI tracks of the N64 version are based on. It also doesn't even have all the songs from the game on it. While the End of Day song is based on Time, it's more like a mixture of Time and Yellow Giant, going between the two in a completely original composition that isn't on the album. And you can't even fully appreciate it in-game without the narrator yapping over it. Actually, it's even more confusing than that, as I have literally just found out while editing this part of the video. This song is actually on the album, but it wasn't originally. Despite basically being the only song in the entire game, it wasn't on the original 2000 release of the album, but it was added as a bonus track on all future re-releases. Except the 2022 one, where it seems to go missing again. I didn't realise this album was available officially online at first, so I was just listening to a rip of the original 2000 release on YouTube, where the song was missing. But I'm glad I found this out, because I love this track, and now you can listen to it in higher quality, and without the narrator talking over it. So yeah, a very odd rabbit hole to fall into. I have no idea why this song wasn't included originally. Everything I said about the in-game music applies doubly here. It's like an adventure around the island in album form, jumping from beautiful compositions like the two I mentioned earlier, along with a gorgeous reprise version of Yellow Giant, to more experimental tracks mostly consisting of tribal village drumming and the sounds of nature. It's a really interesting listen through, and is really accessible, being available on places like YouTube Music and Spotify. I'd love to own it physically, but it seems like right now only a vinyl is still in print, so hopefully one day the CD version comes back too. The music and sound effects are one of the areas I think the N64 version is just straight up objectively better. I don't think it's even close. It seems like with the GameCube version, they got carried away with how many sounds could be played at once, so it never shuts the fuck up. You never get the quiet moments of reflection. It is all noise all of the time. Even far away from civilization, it will still make so much noise at you. I really hope you liked that one specific sound effect, because it plays on loop like every 15 seconds. My dog was not a fan of me playing this game, let me tell you. Remember how the N64 version at sunset would quieten down everything else? The sounds of nature lessened, the villagers stopped playing their music. It was like the whole world was slowing down and settling in for the night to let you bask in the moment. Well, that is completely ruined when all the village music still plays, plus all the random sound effects, and the narrator gets involved too. It's a mess.
The giant's body grows cold.
Doshin the Giant, then, is a really interesting game. I love that coming together of, on the one hand, the simple gameplay loop that always leaves you with something new to do in that classic Nintendo way, effortlessly guiding you even when you don't realise it. And then, on the other hand, the ways the game defies typical conventions in the way that Iida's games always seem to. And I think what highlights this most interestingly to me is going back to how hate can make Doshin grow. Like, growing is meant to be a reward, right? It lets you move faster, pick up larger objects, makes terraforming easier, So surely hurting your population, going against the point of the game, should punish you. But not really. It rewards you the same as love, but that's the kicker. The reward defies convention as well, because it's a double-edged sword. Getting bigger isn't always an upgrade, it can actually be detrimental. Get too big and the very ground below Doshin will get deformed simply by walking on it, which can lead to buildings collapsing without you even realising. On top of that, it obviously becomes a lot harder to safely interact with villages when you're so large. It is really easy to accidentally step on someone or their house, forcing you to really slow down and be careful, or just straight up leave them alone till the next day because you can't safely help them. It's like the game is punishing you for trying to beat it faster and trying to be good at it. Like, no, it's not that kind of game. We're gonna make you slow down and appreciate the experience and the world that you're building, and I dig that. I don't think I've ever played a game where its main reward system was also a punishment at the same time. You might have also noticed that a downside to being massive is Doshin fills up the entire screen and you can barely see past him, which I again thought was an interesting design choice and another way to punish the player for getting too big. Until I looked up footage of other people playing the game and saw you can actually zoom the camera out. You just use the D-pad, which I apparently didn't think to press once in my entire playthrough. It really did just feel like exactly the kind of move this game would do, so I didn't even question it. So if you have played this game before and are wondering why I'm playing the entire game like this, that's why. I'm just an idiot, basically. So now that we've talked about how both versions of the game work, you know, the shared designs between them, I'm gonna split here and talk more about my experiences beating each version of the game and highlighting where more of their differences lie, and ultimately, how despite being so similar to each other, how the GameCube version was an absolute delight to play through, and how the N64 version is an evil game that hates you and wants you dead, and kinda made me miserable by the end of my playthrough. And of course, after saying that, I'm gonna start with the GameCube version. Full spoilers for Doshin the Giant going forward, so if you want to see how the games end for yourself, you have been warned. I absolutely loved playing this game, man. I can see why it's not for everyone. The deliberate slowness might be annoying to some people, they might find the sound effects a bit much, they might find the gameplay too simple, but it was perfect for me. A fascinating blend of Nintendo game design and that art dinky joy of the game just being such a pleasant place to explore and exist within. I loved getting to know all of my little villages, stopping to admire how the vegetation sways as I brush past it, seeing all the different types of animals I could find, watching birds dive into the water to catch fish. The world just feels so alive and is a joy to look at. I found myself stopping to take it in loads of times while playing. It just does such a great job of conveying the warmth of being on a tropical island. It would make for a great summer game, I think, like Mario Sunshine and the great summery vibes that game also exudes. Of course, it's not a chill experience all of the time, like when disasters strike, but again, much like everything else in the game, it doesn't punish you that much. I never had any villagers die from them, except by me killing them, trying to save them from the disaster, oops. At worst, you'll lose a few buildings, and they'll have rebuilt all that was lost in like 5 minutes. The only time it actually became annoying was when I was trying to build the 15th monument. I didn't realise until then that disasters always spawn near you, which I guess makes sense. It would be annoying to have a disaster spawn on the opposite side of the map and ravage a village when you had no chance to ever stop it. But I was inadvertently dooming this last monument to keep getting hit by earthquakes because I was watching it so closely. But in my entire playthrough, that was the only thing that ever remotely came close to being annoying. Apart from the sound effects, obviously, but you know what I mean. The rest of the game was smooth sailing, an incredibly relaxing experience, like Aquanaut's Holiday, but with more robust gameplay to latch onto. A game to admire and experience living inside, while also having objectives to work towards. It felt like the perfect game at the perfect time. In an age where it's now more than ever so easy to get distracted, reaching for your phone at every small break in whatever's going on, everything vying for your attention and going by so fast, with AI threatening human creativity and making the world feel so bleak, I really couldn't have picked a better game to help take a break from all of that. A deliberately slow-paced game that invites you to just observe the world and immerse yourself in it. It became part of my routine for a week or two, just settling down for the evening after dinner, playing a few in-game days, fully enraptured, and what a beautiful message the game has too. All about celebrating human creativity and our urge and nature to create works of art, is exactly the sappy, sentimental message I envisioned myself writing for this video about halfway through my playthrough, which was then completely ruined when I built the mysterious 16th monument. The thing they build to celebrate the coming together of all the island's tribes, to celebrate humanity and the vast challenges we can face if we all help each other, is the fucking Tower of Babel, dooming them all, causing the island to sink into the ocean, killing all the villagers and Doshin himself as he tries to stop it from collapsing, lying dead in the water before returning to the land. And then there's an epilogue where a new Doshin rises on the shores of his old dead self and helps a village of grey people build a rocket ship to escape Earth. The epilogue is kind of whatever, to be honest. It's completely tacked on and not in the original game, but the ending was still a shocking moment to witness, and the ultimate conclusion of Doshin having everything be a double-edged sword. Once you beat the game, your island is deleted. It sunk into the ocean, for God's sake. All the villages you helped build, all the new land you created, it's all gone. If I wasn't recording my playthrough for this video, I'd have no evidence that this island ever existed. It's beautiful in a way, and as a last twist of the dagger, all the new islands you unlock for beating the game suck ass. Just bizarre map layouts that seem like no fun to build on whatsoever. I'm surprised there wasn't one that was just the map from the original game, but I digress. The ending really stuck with me, and was an incredibly memorable capstone to what became an unforgettable game. I love everything it strikes for, its unique mechanics, the freedom it gives you to mould the island to your liking, the beautiful atmosphere I couldn't help but just sit and let wash over me. I'm sure the length of this video is a testament in and of itself as to how this game captured my imagination. I cannot recommend it enough if you think it would be even remotely interesting to you, with the caveat that I am talking about the GameCube version. Right, yeah, let's get into that. So, for most of my playthrough, I really liked the N64 version. It is, after all, more Doshin the Giant, so the prospect of having a whole new version of it to play through, with its own cool, unique vibes, was really exciting. I love the mysterious foggy draw distance, adding crazy atmosphere to some areas, even if completely by accident. Like how you can climb a small hill and suddenly feel like you're on top of a massive mountain range. It really lets your imagination go wild at times. Getting to see all the buildings and monuments that were unique to this version was cool too. There's so many assets like mushroom houses and flower patches that didn't make it over. The villagers are a great standout too. I think they feel a bit more alive in this one. It felt like their schedules and habits were a lot more clearly defined. At the start of each day, they wake up and convene at the centre of the village before going about and doing their own things. They meet back at lunch and dinner to eat, and will stop working and just chill out towards the end of the day. You'll see them run off to go fish, and they'll react when you pick up one of their villagers when you take them away. It's very cool, and it helps make them feel a lot more alive than the GameCube version, I thought. Though the GameCube version definitely has the advantage of scale, using the better hardware to push villager counts way higher than the N64 version could ever reach. So while they may be less identifiable as individuals, the spectacle of the larger towns more than makes up for that. And there's also a unique villager mechanic in this version too, homelessness. Yay! If a building gets destroyed, there's a chance some villagers will become homeless, no longer counting as part of the village. They'll just wander around, often getting stuck near the ocean, not really doing anything. It's a great way to hoover up hearts, because you get one from the villager you bring back, as well as every villager that lives there, so you really get some massive payouts from it, by far the fastest way to grow larger at the start of each day. Doshin's terraforming is a lot wider here too, whereas it's more precise on GameCube. This means there's a lot of cases where terraforming like this isn't ideal for fulfilling villager requests. You're going to be changing too much land. However, you can also lower the ground by jumping and raise the ground by grabbing and pulling, which are two things that I never ever did on GameCube, but I actually ended up doing loads here because it's the more precise way of shifting the terrain, which made the terraforming feel more engaging, having to think about what tools to use to fulfill the request best. I also really like that when you jump, Doshin is so heavy, he makes all the people and houses around him get tossed up in the air when he lands. Another thing that didn't make it to GameCube, and I have no idea why. I think it's adorable. A more useless thing that didn't make it over was Doshin's ability to suck energy from trees. Completely separate from gaining love and hate to grow stronger, if Doshin stands in a dense forest, a green ring will appear around him. Stay in the ring, and he'll absorb the energy from the trees, growing bigger, but killing them in the process. I did this once or twice when I first discovered it, but tree coverage wasn't dense enough towards the end of my playthrough to ever use it outside of the first few in-game days, and I don't like how it circumvents the literal main mechanic of the game, so I think it was a good removal. I also have to bring up how they completely removed all of Doshin's swag for the re-release. While the aesthetics of the GameCube game are more in line with what you'd expect from it, you know, stuff like the pretty island florals for the main menu, or the cute illustrations of the villagers on the end of day screen. You compare those to the N64's Virtual Boy-esque main menu with red blocky logo design, and the day end screen feeling like you're logging onto an old computer terminal, and it's like, god damn, this game had source that I had no idea it could have. I mean, just look at Doshin. I never expected him to have an edge. But don't I look stupid? Look how cool he looks in his leather jacket. Peep these incredible illustrations, the ominous concept art. I was honestly in awe that a character as goofy looking as Doshin could inspire art like this. I mean, they embrace that goofiness too, don't get me wrong. The fan book starts with 3 double-page spreads leading up to his belly button, and even includes art of Doshin being born from his own belly button. Cool. I could, and did, flip through these guides for the original game for hours. Also, shout out the adorable miniature sets they made. I'm glad at least these made it across to the GameCube game, and in way higher quality than you could view them on N64. So this all sounds normal and like it would be a pretty good time so far, so what the hell was I talking about earlier when I said this game was evil? Why did I love this game so much on GameCube but have such a hard time here? Like, to the genuine point of rage quitting the game? I wish I was joking. I didn't know it was possible to rage quit Doshin the fucking Giant, but apparently it is, because I did it twice. Well, that's because of these last few mechanics, which genuinely I absolutely hated. Let's start with the least egregious, tree lifespan. Now, this was a thing on GameCube too, but their lifespans were way longer. The trees on N64 only live 1 to 3 in-game days. Okay, not the end of the world, but on top of that, if a tree dies and the ground beneath a building turns to wasteland, it collapses instantly. There's no grace period where you can place another tree down, it'll just disappear. So there's many times where I started a new day, and villages were completely empty. Okay, so that's kind of annoying, but you just gotta make sure you're on top of putting trees in villages and it'll be fine, right? Well, for one, remember that this game has 9 starting villages, and I ended my playthrough with 16, so good luck with doing all of that in a 30-minute in-game day. And then second, Doshin the Giant uses the system clock to progress days when you aren't playing, and I don't mean 1-to-1 like in Animal Crossing, it's 1 day every 4 hours. Stop playing and pick up the game tomorrow, 6 in-game days will have passed. It doesn't matter what you do to try and keep these villages alive, that's double the maximum lifespan of every tree on your island every time you stop playing for a day. Now, to be fair, it does at least seem to cap to 7 in-game days, so it's not like if you stop playing for a week, an entire month in-game will have gone by, but that still means the day I stopped playing, which was the 19th day I experienced, 57 days had actually gone by. I was only a presence on this island for a third of the time it existed. It doesn't matter how many trees you place down, all of them will have died, and you just gotta hope that a new tree spawns in its place to stop the buildings from collapsing. Oh, and just to really rub it in, disasters can occur when you're away too. The first time this happened to me, I generally thought I did something wrong and accidentally ruined my save. I started again from the beginning because my entire island was a wasteland. All the buildings were destroyed, and there was nothing I could have done to stop it because, unbeknownst to me, my island was hit by 2 tornadoes and a fire while I wasn't playing. This is what pushed the game over the edge for me. It just felt impossible to keep my island in good condition. Every time I stopped playing, I would return to nearly all my buildings being gone, homeless villagers running around everywhere, and restoring it all felt like a Sisyphean task because it didn't matter if I reunited all the homeless villagers to where they're meant to be and planted 50 trees in every village, because it would all be gone the next time I stopped playing. This becomes especially annoying when you're working towards monuments, because if you finish an in-game day with one halfway under construction, you might as well kiss it goodbye. There were so many times when I was working on a village, finally got the monument started, but then next time I played, half the buildings that got built that day had disappeared, half the population had become homeless, and the monument would fail as they focused on rebuilding what was lost. It also doesn't help that the villagers are morons in this version, constantly starting construction of monuments in locations that will never work, half off sheer cliffs or literally in the ocean, dooming its construction before it even starts. And when they do fail, you're given very little indication of why. You just gotta try and guess, and by the end of the game, with 2 more monuments to build before the final one, I could just not get them built to save my life. I really wanted to beat this version and drown those fuckers for everything they put me through, but it just wasn't fun anymore. This village would start building one, so I'd leave, only to check my map and see they stopped building it. I'd return to see that no buildings collapsed, yet half the villagers were now homeless. Now, I reunite the villagers and I sit there, watching, trying to figure out what was making the construction fail, and I get hit by a natural disaster, causing a volcano to erupt right next to me. Because of course, having the disaster happen on the other side of the map would be unfair, but it's totally fine for them to happen when I'm literally not playing the game. Like, okay, fuck, my bad. I flatten the ground, get construction started, and leave to go sort out the other village that can't build anything to save their life. This one spot, which was a starting village by the way, seemed cursed. I don't know what caused it to keep failing. The only thing I could think of, because none of their houses were disappearing and making them homeless, was there wasn't enough space for it, but no matter how much bigger I made the island, it didn't help. Was it not flat enough? It seemed pretty flat to me, and again, any time I tried to make it flatter, or what I thought was flatter, it still failed. Eventually, after several days of failing, I gave up on the idea of building the monument here and started moving the entire population to the starting red village, an area I knew that could build things. So I moved them over, one at a time, very slowly, destroyed the shitty tribute to me the village had built previously, and then the day ended. I started the next day instantly, so no extra in-game time had passed. This is the literal very next day. Half the village had gone homeless, turning it the wrong colour, at which point they started building a monument I didn't need. I tried to destroy their construction site and I just couldn't. For whatever fucking reason, it could withstand all this but not me looking away from it for 2 seconds. At which point I checked my map to see the other village's monument had also failed again, and I just stopped playing. I spent nearly half as long trying to build these 2 monuments as my entire playthrough of the GameCube version, but as much as I wanted to beat it, I just couldn't make it happen, and not wanting to hurt my experience of the game anymore, I decided it was just time to call it quits. These mechanics are all fine on their own, but formed a awful vicious cycle when combined, and they definitely made the right choice removing them from the GameCube version. It's a god game where you're a terrible god. No wonder the villagers wanted to build the Tower of Babel to kill themselves with. I can't blame them. While I appreciate the moments the game uses tension successfully, this was a step too much for me, impacting the game really negatively, which is a shame because underneath it's still the exact same game I loved, with the masterful guiding of the player and the same satisfying loop of building up the villages. But I just didn't want to slow down and admire the scenery, because any moment I spent staying still was time wasting the day away, and I needed that time to rebuild after what happened last night. What scenery is there to look at anyway? No beautiful green fields or bustling villages, just empty wasteland with a couple of homeless people hanging out. Could I tell you anything about the villages I helped build like I could on GameCube? The blue village with its stone houses overlooking the giant skull bong they built because they hate me, or the green village with its luxury villas overlooking the giant spiked tower, also built because they hate me? Not really, no. It had such a detrimental effect on the game for me, there was no room to relax, only paranoia, opening my map every 10 seconds to make sure my monuments were actually still being built. And maybe the final thing to really rub all that in, not only does the game use the inbuilt clock to advance days when you're not playing, but it also essentially has its own calendar. Every 5 days, the villagers take a day off. On these days, the villagers won't build monuments, won't build houses, won't make requests. They don't do anything, not even move, standing completely still in the middle of their village where they will not budge for the entire day. I really don't like this. It makes the day a complete wash because you can't progress at all, or even begin to repair any damage that may have happened when you weren't playing. You kinda have no choice but to walk around not really doing anything, or to just jump off the side of the map to start the next day early. This whole thing exposed a pitfall I had hoped I would avoid when playing through this game, the risk of coming across a mechanic and misunderstanding it because I don't understand Japanese. When I first saw my island turned into a complete wasteland, I thought it bugged out. until I looked through some of the guides and discovered the real-time clock mechanic. When I first saw the villagers standing completely still all day doing nothing, I again thought it was bugged. It looks bizarre and not right at all, until I found this Japanese blog that explained the mechanic. That eventually led to me stumbling upon this English guide to the game on IGN. I probably should have looked for something like this from the get-go, but had assumed, based on everything I had heard about the 64DD version, that it would just be the same as the GameCube one, and that I would be able to figure out everything easy peasy. I had no idea how much the two differed going into this. So I apologise if I have gotten anything wrong in the course of making this video. I've tried to double check everything I could, but if I have made any mistakes, I'll be sure to leave a pinned comment below to make any corrections. This mini rabbit hole also led to me finding Japanese comments and blogs talking about how they prefer the 64DD version, so there are definitely those who like the real-time clock mechanic, but it sadly wasn't for me, and it's such an integral part of how this version works that it's very hard to avoid it. For example, when monuments are being built, it tracks how many days pass by, so if you stop playing for a bit with one under construction, it should be nearly finished by the time you start playing again. The IGN guide even recommends using time travel like in Animal Crossing to get monuments faster, which sounds like awful advice to me because in my experience, all the villagers' trees will die and ruin any chance of it getting built, but maybe that's just terrible luck on my part. Honestly, the guide as a whole is kind of insane, constantly recommending that you fiddle with the internal clock to speed up monument construction, avoid too many days passing by between play sessions, and to skip over villager rest days. While I know this isn't how the game is meant to be played, it's wild to me that any of this could be in a guide about Doshin the Giant, especially as the only English guide I could find. The fact the guide is going to so many lengths to get you to avoid such a central game mechanic makes me feel like it's not the best implemented one. While Ida's previous games utilise tension and slow moments well, I don't think this is a great example of it. You know, watching a caveman sleep for 30 seconds versus waiting 30 minutes for the next day to start so you can actually play the game. All that said though, I feel the IGN guide may be overcomplicating things a little, because I think I found a way to avoid a lot of the real-time clock stuff that is way easier than whatever they were telling me to do, and it makes the game a lot more enjoyable. For me, anyway. At first I thought the game only saved at the end of each day, but you can actually save and quit midday as well. And if you do so, no extra time passes when you're not playing because, well, you know, how could it? You interrupted the game halfway through a day. So, if you want to stop playing for the night, just start the next day and immediately save and quit. It does feel a little sneaky to do, and again, just like the IGN guide, I don't think it's a great sign that I have to advise you to deliberately avoid a gameplay mechanic to make it more enjoyable. And true, it won't stop all the frustration with having trees dying between days, but you will have a lot less to deal with, and it will make it a lot more manageable. Instead of feeling like all you're doing when you play is repairing what was broken when you weren't playing, over and over and over again. Honestly, saying it out loud, it's almost enough to tempt me to start a third playthrough to see how much it improves the experience. But I think I've played enough and talked enough about Doshin the Giant for one video. I don't need to potentially add any more runtime than this video already has, but I think that's a testament to how good the underlying game is. Despite how rough a time I had towards the end trying to beat it, I'm already thinking of and getting excited about a potential future playthrough. It's still the same game that I loved, but what pushed it over the edge was trying to finish it. If you were just trying to play it casually, it would still be a fun time. It was just I couldn't give it the patience it needed at the end, and it began asking too much from me. I suppose overall then, I'm a little mixed on the N64DD version of Doshin the Giant. The core of the game I love so much is still there, but it just wasn't fully cooked yet. When it works properly, it's still great, but it has its rough edges, with clashing gameplay mechanics and their unfortunate knock-on effects to every other aspect of the game, and the fact the game is just very easy to exploit when you know what you're doing. Yes, you can just farm infinite hearts this way. It's kinda silly. Well, I know I came across sounding very negative while chronicling my adventure through it. I think I still came away from playing it feeling mostly positive about the experience. It laid the rocky foundation for what the GameCube version would eventually smooth out and turn into one of my favourite games, so I can't help but hold some level of affection towards it, and would say it's worth checking out if you're a fan of the GameCube game and have never tried it before. So, needless to say, I disagree with the internet when they say that the GameCube version of Doshin the Giant is simply a port. It adds and removes and changes so much, it honestly feels like a sequel at times. In any case, I think, finally, that's just about everything I wanted to say about it. Like I said earlier, it captured my imagination something fierce. I've never played another game quite like it. It's such a fun little sandbox to explore and play with, creating your little island as you see fit, soaking in all of its immaculate vibes. I adore it. It's no wonder Doshin ended up being the mascot for the N64DD, and Nintendo were 100% right to trust that it would do well if it could get released on a console that anyone actually owned. By the time they announced its closure, the 64DD's online service only had 15,000 subscribers. I cannot recommend Doshin the Giant enough, though I would obviously recommend the GameCube version a little bit more. I left writing the outro to this video until the very end of me editing it, to try and gather up all my thoughts into a satisfying conclusion, but I really do not know what else I could say that I haven't said already. Do you really need me to spell out any clearer what I think about this game? I absolutely love it. There's no thought of mine left unsaid. I really wanted this to be a definitive piece on everything I could possibly ever want to say about it. A love letter. A beautiful, peaceful game, unlike any other I've played. I'm not sure why I got the urge to play it again after over nearly a decade, but I'm so glad I did, and I hope you found my yapping about it fun and interesting, and that I inspire some of you to check it out for yourself. Go out there and play the games, listen to the album, and flick through the awesome guidebooks. There's so much interesting stuff surrounding this game out there, just waiting to be appreciated. I don't know if Doshin the Giant will ever return, outside of a Switch 2 Virtual Console release anyway. I don't know how you add stuff to the game for a potential sequel without disrupting the simplicity that makes it so appealing in the first place. Of course, it doesn't need a sequel, and I don't think I'd ever want one. I love it as it is. I don't need more. Param is gone, and Ida has moved on from making games, now teaching film at Ritsumeikan University. Though that said, A Way of Offering More Doshin was released 4 months after the original, its expansion pack. Something I notice a lot about online discussion surrounding Doshin the Giant is talk about how weird the game is, but that's not really something I get. Like, yeah, I guess Doshin is a weird yellow guy with a weird yellow outy belly button, but I don't know, I guess having had the game since I was a kid, I've just gotten used to it. It hardly even registers as weird to me, especially in the company of other god games which are all kind of a bit weird in their own way. I guess my point is, I feel like the weirdness of Doshin is over-exaggerated at times, especially as someone who has played its expansion pack, Doshin the Giant, Tinkling Toddler Liberation Front, a game about using the power of bedwetting to free Doshin who is stuck in prison. Now that's a weird game. But we'll talk about that more in the next video. So yeah, thank you for watching this video. I know it's a very long one and that's a lot of time to put aside to watching me yap about a 20-year-old GameCube game, so if you did put the time aside for it, thank you very much. I hope you're looking forward to part 2. I've not decided yet if I'm going to work on that straight away or if I'm going to do a smaller video between as like a palette cleanser. So let me know what you'd prefer, but either way, part 2 is not going to be anywhere near as long as this one. I did try to cut down this video in places, but ultimately wanted to get every thought I had that I felt was important into this video, because I knew I'd regret it otherwise, and we'd be in a similar situation where 12 years after this one, I was once again making another Doshin video because I thought of more to say. That said, there is still probably stuff I could have added that didn't make it, so feel free to look at the pinned comment below, where if I think of anything interesting to add, I'll leave it in there, along with any corrections I may have to make if I got anything wrong when talking about the 64DD version. As always, thank you to Biggest Milkus for the incredible thumbnail art, and a thank you to Kat for this incredible Doshin hood, which I'm sure you're all very jealous of. I'm definitely not at all self-conscious about the fact I'm recording this in front of a very large window, and that everyone on the street walking by my house can see me wearing it. It's not making me self-conscious at all, honest. Originally I wanted to be wearing full Doshin face paint for this, but the face paint kit we bought fucking sucked ass. We used all of the yellow, and you can barely see it. I just end up looking like the transgender Joker, so this will have to do. And as always, a massive thank you to everyone who supports me on Patreon, whose names are appearing around me now. I hope you enjoyed this video too. Anyway, as much as I would like to say I'm done with Doshin the Giant now, that definitely isn't the case, not only because I have 2 more Doshin adjacent videos I want to make, but because that itch for a third playthrough is still in me, so it wouldn't surprise me if I cave and start a new one soon. I really wasn't expecting Doshin to absorb my life like it has the last 4 months, but hopefully this video has been a fun time, so it's been worth it in the end. I'm gonna take this off now before anyone notices me. Goodbye.